see the path to the championship. I can see it.
The Coca-Cola 600 belongs to Ryan Blaney.
Blaney's learned how to win over the last couple of months.
Blaney, Harmon, they spin behind him. It's going to be Blaney.
We're going to win this thing.
Ryan Blaney is going to win his way into the championship for.
You have to run a perfect race to get it.
Ryan Blaney is a NASCAR Cup Series champion.
What an unbelievable year. What an unbelievable playoffs for us.
This is the Team Blaney Podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 139 of the Team Blaney Podcast. My name is Adam Rogers, and alongside me is co-host Steve Mez. This podcast is brought to you by fans for fans. Steve and I have been following the drivers of the Blaney racing family for 2 decades, and Team Blaney itself launched on social media in 2014. Each weekly episode of the show offers an in-depth analysis of Ryan Blaney's latest NASCAR Cup Series race, plus news, notes, and special guest interviews all throughout the year. This week, we break down Team 12's run in the Auto Trader Echo Park Automotive 400 at Texas Motor Speedway. Steve, welcome back. Texas, mile and a half. Refreshing, I guess, maybe from the last couple weeks of not as exciting short track racing. And I don't know how you felt about the race, but that first stage wasn't too excited. Seemed a little bit boring. But then the rest of the way, strategies, crashes, some unfortunate crashes, more strategy, some surprises, and an okay race. What'd you think?
It was, would you say it was good till it wasn't? That's what you said before we
Yeah, right
recording.
before. Yep. Yeah, good till it wasn't.
Said it was good till it wasn't. And that's pretty much the way anytime this happens, this situation happens, that's the way it is. It's like we know week to week, we're following one of the top elite drivers, teams in the sport. So we know week to week, top 10 should be within reach. Top 5 is a really good day and always a chance to win, you know. And then when this type of thing happens where something totally left field, out of your control, just kind of just ruins your day. And you know, I know which, you know, I don't know. They said that Haas is thinking about selling a charter, and maybe they should sell the 41 charter.
Yeah, I mean, that was my thoughts during that. And I understand the driver of the 41's really decorated short track racer, still gives a lot back to that community, but that doesn't mean you can't make a mistake every once in a while. And he made some unfortunate mistakes that cost us our day. But hey, positives, go ahead.
It was no mistake. Okay. Let's get this straight.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
It was no mistake. There's a couple pedals in front of him. There's a wheel. And as you watch the in-car camera, his in-car camera is online, and I put a TikTok out so everybody could see it. He had a decision to make. He could have made a decision to the left. He could have made a decision to the right. He could have made a decision where he backed off, hit the brake a little, set up the turn, tried to make the pass coming off the turn, got underneath him, got above him. He did none of those things. He decided his best thing to do was to drive right through the 12 car. Anybody else could say whatever they want. They can say, well, the lap before he did this and the lap before they did that. And, you know, I understand these guys get door to door sometimes and they kind of get up against each other and they try to take the air off each other and they do those type of things. But when you drive right through somebody, you have decided that you've made an action that I'm not happy with. Let's just say that.
It's that kid song. It's like, can't go over it, can't go under it, can't go around it. You have to go through it. Well, that's through it. Yeah. That's the way he went.
Yeah, the way he went. You know, can't say that he's not a great driver. You brought up a point to me, I think when we were texting about this beforehand, about him in the truck series or something.
Yes. A couple years ago. Yep.
Where he made a statement about, how was it again?
It's like, you can't do that, or do not do that. Or like, it's basically, he had gotten crashed for the win in one of the truck races. And he had a very strong truck, but he was basically trying to teach a lesson to the younger drivers. Yeah. Like, don't do that. And, here we go.
And well, that's the thing, is he's saying that at the end of a race, right? He's saying that when all the money's on the line. Okay. That's totally understandable. What happens at the end of this race between the second and the third place car on the backstretch? Totally understandable. We'll get to it, how many laps there were to go at this point when this happens, but There was no reason. There was no reason whatsoever. I don't care what happened in turn 3 and 4. He's going to say, well, he did this to me or he did that to me. But you just risked the life of a fellow driver by driving through him like that. And truthfully, I mean, you're good enough car control to know you wasn't going to wreck yourself, but you could have wrecked yourself too. So, just, lack of skill. I don't think so.
Obviously, we don't really have much inside information or anything, just the rumor mill. But if Stuart Haas was having trouble re-signing with Ford as a Tier 1 program, I don't know that one of their cars just driving through the reigning champion for Ford
the
is
reigning
a good
champion
idea.
Driving through the reigning champion for Ford, who's basically their best car every weekend. Who probably would have worked his way right back to the front like he was doing any other time in a strategy call. Yeah.
So
I gotta get out my soapbox. I went outside. I did touch some grass just so people know. It kind of helped, but
All right. Well, we've had enough of it, so we're good.
Yes, I've had it. Yes.
Some positives for the weekend. The truck race thought was pretty good. Kyle Busch wins again, but it wasn't necessarily in dominant fashion. Let's talk briefly about this Xfinity Series race, which was just kind of like an okay race the whole way. Extremely exciting, dramatic, fun finish. That could have been really, really cool because of the connections to Blaney here with the spotter, right? So let's talk about this finish.
Yeah. And automatically, as soon as I figured out what was going on at the end of the race, I mean, wait a minute, let me pull up the communication so I can listen to Tim. And he was extremely good down the stretch. I mean, Ryan Sieg's been around a while. He's not like a young kid. But they played a good strategy game. They had a decent lead. They had to click off some laps at the end, and it was great listening to Tim kind of like keep him going the right way, And then the closing lap or two when he did get, he got kind of crossed up and not crossed up, but he got caught and made his moves. And really, Ryan did a good job. He literally did put him into the wall down the front stretch to try and slow him down. And made an extremely close call. Tim was great. Like I said, Tim was great on the radio. Even at that point, this is under review, but he gets an automatic thing on timing and scoring that said who won. And he was, they were so close to really making one of those stories, where you always want to see a little bit of an underdog, a little bit of a guy who, but they still had enough speed to be there where they needed to be. And they made the right strategy calls to be there. So it was a great finish. It was great to watch.
And it wasn't a super big fluke for Ryan Sieg to be up there. He ran in the top 10 and top 5 all day. So it wasn't all strategy. They had like a super fast car. And honestly, his brother was running top 15 most of the day. I know they have a couple other cars out there that weren't maybe as stout. For being a smaller family team, they do end up bringing about 3 to 4 race cars every week. But Ryan usually outdrives the rest of them. It's kind of that flagship car. But yeah, it was interesting to see them run up front, especially on a track like this, where speed and everything is really important. You could tell they put a lot into that effort, and he was so close, and it looked like he was gonna go run away with it, but it was like those last 3 laps, it was like the one just figured out a great line and caught up to him. And I'm glad they didn't just crash and go backwards and on fire across the finish line. It was the second like really exciting finish for NASCAR this season, next to that finish in Atlanta that Ryan Blaney was in the same spot of losing by just about inches. So that made it exciting, and I think it set it up. We had a couple of weeks there, like I mentioned, short track racing that maybe wasn't as exciting as it could have been. So people were looking forward actually to get back to some 1.5 mile racing, even if it was at Texas Motor Speedway that people have been a little bit sad about the reconfiguration the last few years. But spring date, warm but not incredibly super warm, and we saw from practice that the sketchiness of the track was going to come out even without any application of PJ1, and maybe that's part of it too. Maybe it wasn't gripped up enough. So it made for an interesting weekend for sure. Drivers battle.
Yeah, no, they did. They did have a little bit of a couple guys during practice have some issues. Sketchy. I'm tired of that word already. They used it so many times on the broadcast this weekend. Brian was in Group A there. He went out. He was going to go out 18th when it came to qualifying, Barry. But we had a couple extra cars this weekend. The 84 and the 33 were out there. And that was kind of interesting to see how they were going to do during practice. They went out early on there, and within the first couple laps, got to about the fifth best single lap time there. So that was pretty good to see, that early lap. But they the 22 were also in there, and the 22 was like seventh quick, and the 2 was ninth quick. So they were all like up there on the board, halfway decent. And they were, they kind of wanted to wait till they got into some clean air a little bit to run a couple laps, because they were kind of in dirty air the whole time. They came in for adjustments about 8 minutes in. They'd run 18 laps. At that point, it was the fourth best 10-lap average once again. So you're not too bad. Of course, the 45, the 22, and the 1 were the guys that were a little bit faster on that. But they came back out with about 5 minutes to go. And Jonathan says, thought they were a little free off at 2 and this over the bump, so they were kind of like trying to help with that. Third best 15-lap average behind the 45 and the 54, so that's pretty good. Group B, the 5 car came out, and Group B is slower than Group A because they've already, kind of gotten some rubber on the track. It's not as green. So when you see somebody in Group B with a single lap that shoots up there above a bunch of the guys in Group A, you kind of got to open your eyes for a second. And of course, it was Larson. Larson put like the third quickest time together, beating almost all the guys in Group A, and that's scary when they're that good. The 84 and the 8 car both spun out different points during the second session here, and so it ends up being like the 8th best 15-lap average when you put both sessions combined. So it's not too bad, but so they go out, 18th for qualifying there. Tim and Jonathan are discussing kind of what they're doing going into 3, trying to help the lap, pre-lap before they start the lap. Ryan comes in there, and they describe the 54's lap to him a little bit. And Tim says he didn't do much different than us, just throttle time with the tires and everything. But Brian puts up P3 with 1 guy to go. So he does a pretty good job there, and ends up being, third quick in Group A there. So 45, the 54, the 20, and the 2 were the other guys. So pretty good effort by the 2 car too to make that top 5. Group B there, Tim and Ryan are actually discussing how the 45 did his lap. Ryan says he has a little thing or two he wants to try. Hope he does it right. I don't know what that was, but I think it was some of the same things some of the other cars actually did during this lap, where in the 1 and 2 they did something, and 2 and 3 and 4 they changed the line a little bit. But when they were done there, they ended up being P7 overall. The 5 car got the 5 car got the pole there, and like he said he tried something different, but it didn't help. But he congratulated all the guys putting together a good Saturday. And being in the top 10 is always great start for them.
Yeah, criticized them pretty frequently last year, and even the early stages of this year, for not really showing up on qualifying day. They're not starting deep in the field most of the weeks, but last 3 or 4 weeks here, they've been making the top 10, and at least, like you said, it's really nice to always at least be in the top 10 starts. And at least if you can get close in your group to be, 6th or 7th, the way things line up now, it's much more equitable. So it's good to see them have some speed off the truck, and then also still have speed in the race too.
So we get to race day here, stages of 80, 165, 267, 9 sets of tires, fuel run of 62 to 67 laps, pit stall 4, which is I kind of thought they had, they beat at the other end of pit road, but no, pit stall 4 today, with behind the 43 car, but an opening behind him, which is kind of cool. You're coming into your stall, you don't have to worry about going in and around somebody. Of course, the 84, the 8 went to the rear for, backup cars. Roger actually jumps on the radio early on there. He only came on like once or twice during the race, but he was there this weekend. Um, and the 5 takes the low lane for the start there. And they were literally talking about whether or not a second groove was going to work its way in on the radio, because that's going to be the key to the whole day. If they get a second groove going and they can pass on that second groove. By lap 1, he gets up to 6th here. Lap 10, most of the field is single file at this point. And Brian's in 6th, about 4.5 seconds back of the 5 car, but only about 4/10 back of the 14th. So, within striking distance of the guy in front of him. Excuse me. At lap 15, he says he's still tight into 3. It's not too bad, though. Lap 20, it's about 7 seconds back of the leader now, and about 6/10 back of the 14 car. At lap 26, he starts running a higher lane, and in 1 and 2. And lap 28, he also does in 3 and 4. So this kind of like trying to change the angle and see if it widens out a little bit. And he's catching a little bit of ground on the 14 as he does it here. And at lap 29, he actually does pass the 14 to get to 5th. He says it's still a little slimy up there, and he needs to be tightened up a little bit. At lap 30, about 9 seconds back of the 5 car leading, and 2.64 back of the 45, who's 4th. So, he says if it's a green flag stop, they're going to need tightened up a number. And at this point, the 5 is in lap traffic too, so we get to see how he actually operates in some traffic. Lap 36 here, the green flag starts are happening here. Lap 37, they go ahead and pit. This stop is like a 10.14. And I got a note in here that he set the pits on fire. They showed this on TV. The empty pit stall that he was going through, or maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, he had to drive through the flames, so I'm not sure what the deal was there. I don't know who was pitted prior to the empty stall, but yes, Brian actually came through the fire.
I thought he sparked them. I thought he actually caused them, from what I saw. But
either way, he drove through flame.
I think that was like his. But the thing is, it was an empty pit stall behind him, so I don't know what was in that pit stall or why. And I think the stall behind that was the 54 car, actually. The lap 41 here, the 24 pits, the 24 who pitted actually 2 laps earlier than Ryan. Actually, kind of when Ryan blends back on the track, he's in front of him. And that's literally because he ran 2 laps with a 1.5 seconds faster tires, So even if the pit stops were the same, you're going to lose that on the track. And he did. So lap 49 there, we get a caution for the 84. There are 4 cars that haven't pitted yet. So Ryan's in 10th. The 9, the 38, 33, and the 31. And Jonathan says something on the radio about an opportunity for number 4 with 18 cars that are actually on the lead lap. They do go ahead and pit here, and it's a 9.1 pit stop. So pretty good here. The left rear, they're talking about the left rear might not have been tight on the previous stop. So that's something I guess they can kind of tell when they take it off, the way it comes off. But the 19 and the 54 having problems with loose wheels on this pit stop themselves. The leader of the 5 takes the bottom for this restart, and Ryan takes the top, restarting at lap 56 here. Ryan does pass the 2 right away. At lap 57, he's in 8th. He's racing with 1 car. And at lap 67 here, it's something about no motor. He's trying to get to him, and every time he gets there, it kind of just it kind of seems like it's bogged down a little bit. Lap 69, the 9 and the 24 are battling right in front of Ryan, so he's kind of catching on to them. At lap 72, he passes the 24, gets to 7th here. And at lap 75, he's working on the 9 car there, and at lap 79, he passes the 9 car, gets to 6th. The 5 wins the stage, and Ryan gets 6th. Pretty good stage points. And they show a graphic later in the day that he was the top stage point guy in the day. So that's good, because what happens later. But Ryan says he feels like he got a lot better rear security, definitely a step in the right direction here. Jonathan says it's 50-50 here. They could stay out and take the lead. They could come 2 tires and come out 4th or 5th. but orange is the call. So there's 25 laps on tires, probably 6 cars behind them that may take that same opportunity. So that's what they're kind of thinking. If they stay out, who's gonna stay out behind him? He does stay out, and only 3 cars stay out behind him. It's the 17, the 54, and the 33. And then there's like about 2 more guys who took 2 tires, the 19 and the 2. So he's got a little bit of a buffer for this restart. It's probably not as good as you'd hoped it would. You'd hoping for another row or 2, really. But Ryan chooses the low lane with 17 behind him pushing, and the restart lap 89, and he gets clear by the backstretch. So out in the clean air. At lap 93, Tim says they're still by 15 back to the 33. So he's still got guys who, are on his same strategy behind him at this point. The 5 cars trying to get around them. Lap 95, Larson gets to second there and about 1.1 seconds back and closing. 5 laps later, he is 0.2 back. Then we get a caution. Well, there was a commercial. And Brian was actually the leader at the time of the caution, just barely, because the 5 was actually trying to take a pass there. We got the 20, the 48, and the 42 all involved. The 20 actually kind of backed into the wall, and then the other guys were kind of reactionary around it, trying to make sure they didn't hit anything or anybody. But Jonathan says they're now in the fuel window, so that's changing strategy too a little bit. So they do come in though. If they do come in, they're going to get a little more fuel than anybody else though, because they didn't stop that last stop. So they're going to go on him and take 2 tires. Now they come in first, but then they go out in 9th. But there are a lot of the guys in front of him didn't need as much gas because they'd already pitted. The 38 actually stayed out. The 38 takes the bottom. Ryan takes the bottom, restarting at lap 107. By lap 109, he's passing 34 up to 7th, and the 5 is taking the lead back. At lap 111, past the 1 up to 6th. At lap 114, we get a caution for the 77 here. John says, I think we're good on fuel. I think everyone else will stay out here. And this is where the 5 car loses the tire during the caution. And this was so much fun to watch on Ryan's in-car and listen to the scanner, because I think there may have been a commercial during this, and Ryan's like,
Well, yeah.
he's smoking up. He's like, he's smoking up there. Something, he must have a flat. Oh, nope. He's got a loose tire. And it just shoots up across the track.
Yeah.
You see the cars in front of Ryan. Yeah. And then you see the cars in front of Ryan, like trying to duck and dive and make sure they don't get hit by it. It was pretty comical, really. And I thought, this is great. Now we got the fastest car, and he's going to be a couple laps down. And now we have a chance to race some other guys, because really, truthfully, the 5 car was the class of the field to that point. So for this restart here, the 11 takes the bottom, Ryan takes the top, restart at lap 119. By lap 121, we get a caution for the 4 car, and Ryan is in 6th. They're staying out at this point, and they choose here the 11 the bottom, Ryan from P6 at the top. He's behind the 38 car, which is kind of scary because 38 has got tires that are 18 laps older than anybody else's. Restart lap 126, sorts out the 6th here with the 34 and the 38 ahead of him. The front row cars actually kind of did some strategy things here and got themselves in position. Lap 137, we get a caution for the 4 here, still in 6th. And, actually Roger comes on here telling him how good a job he's doing, because it's a little frustrating being behind the 34 and the 38 when they're not as fast as Ryan. And Jonathan says, we're going to split strategies again here. We could stay out and get the lead, but they decide to go ahead and pit. And it's a 9.47 stop, really good stop again. The 1 and the 34 stay out. And so they end up about 14th for the choose here. And the 1 takes the bottom, Ryan takes the bottom, 8 cars stayed out. So, it tells you how, pitting, he didn't actually do that bad a job on the pit stop per se, but they lost position based on all those cars pitting. Restart lap 143 here, the 34 crashes in 4. So their strategy didn't work out for them, those old tires, and they hit the bumps over there in 3 and 4, and Ryan's in 15th at this point, staying out again. The one is now leading. He takes the bottom. Ryan takes the top. And he restart lap 150. And by lap 153, he's up to 10th, passes the 54, gets to 9th. Then 2 laps later, passes the 14, gets to 8th. And then lap 156 passes the 77 to get to 7th. Lap 158 passes the 21, gets to 6th. Lap 159 passes the 47, gets to 5th. At lap 163 passes the 6th, gets to 4th. At lap 165 passes the 43, gets to 3rd. So one of the few cars that could actually pass somebody during the day. And then we get to the end of the stage here. The one car wins the stage. Ryan finishes 3rd and gets some great stage points. 2 stages in a row. So Jonathan says we're going to go snap on here. The 23 stayed out, but it's a 2-tire stop for Ryan. And 4.33 seconds. Those 2-tire stops are great. And a few other cars stayed out. Jonathan says we're better on fuel than most people. So that's going to help them if the 2 pit stops that the next stage should have. 23, the choose here for 23 takes the bottom. Ryan takes the bottom, restart lap 173. And then we get a caution for the 23 and the 14. And we're up to 14th at this point. The 21's actually leading. Jonathan says, of course, staying out from 14th. 21 takes the bottom. Ryan takes the bottom. Restart lap 178. Sorts out to about 15th here. And the 45 actually takes that lead from the 21. And then we get lap 181. According to sources close to me and on the internet, there was allegedly they raced each other pretty rough in 3 and 4, side by side. And the scanner, from what I can remember, right before that, Ryan said something about being really tight. And he's back in traffic, and he's trying to work his way forward. And he has to kind of wait till he restarts, sort out a little bit before he can really start working on guys one at a time. But this was one of them, and I think he had already completed the pass, obviously. But by the time he got to 1 and 2, the 41 car decided that there was a bullseye on the back of the 12 car, and he hit it really well. He hit it pretty square. He made sure that he punted it quite well. He kind of gave it the Ray Guy treatment and hit it pretty hard. I don't understand, what this was. This was not, I was trying to figure out the term pound of flesh for something minor, basically. If you want to rub and get into the turn and rub each other, that's what you do. You don't just punt the other guy once you get down to the other end of the track just because you're mad. You ruined his day, and you really could have ruined your own too. And like I said earlier, this is not the way you're supposed to race people. And Ryan, I guarantee you, if he did rough him up in 3 and 4, he didn't do it on purpose. He got underneath him, maybe got a little loose, but he didn't do it to try to take the guy out. So
especially with how the last couple runs he's been able to pass guys. I mean, people could claim maybe Ryan had to check up or something, or the 41 still drove into him in a turn, so that's not just a normal bump draft or something like that. So I could see where people were confused at first as well, because Fox seemingly had no cameras in the area. They're trying to show it to you from a wide shot, and all you really see is Ryan kind of jerk left and go right up the track. So some initial people thought, including the TV booth, thought like, oh, he just got loose and lost it, because they saw so many other guys in this race do the same thing, just get loose and crash. But obviously, Twitter or social media is really quick to post the in-car cameras, and then you could see really clearly like what happened. So,
well, that's the thing, is we're both listening to the scanner. So the first thing we heard was he wrecked us. That's what we heard. He wrecked us. Now it's a question of who's he, because we're watching in-car cam too, both of us. And the in-car cam is the single camera on this one, where it's straight out the front window. So you don't know who hit you from behind, and you hear he wrecked us, and then you're looking at the timing and scoring, and you figure it out pretty quick. Like, well, the guy running behind us the last lap was the 41. And then, like I said, like you said, it took TV about a half an hour before they found a replay that actually showed what happened. But we knew pretty much. And then, you find out these little statements that, well, we heard this on the radio from the 41 and he was going to get him. And it's like, well, there you go. It had malicious intent to it. And
any
there's
thoughts on, because the other thing that you're going to hear in situations like this, because he was a top 5 car that was running back in 14th, 15th, is why didn't they stay out, or why did they pit, or why did they take this many tires, or whatever it was. And I mean, this whole race was like that though, strategy wise. Like every basically pit stop cycle, the guys were jumping each other back and forth because they're on differing strategies. And the only thing I could say is there was still one more stop, at least one more stop needed in this race. So he could have stayed out, but then the other people are potentially just going to jump him. And what we're going to see here going forward until the end of the race is they end up with this long green flag run that they 12 car needed for their strategy to play out. And unfortunately, it doesn't actually happen until this caution. So that was unfortunate. Yeah. So, I mean, I could hear that people are like, oh, he just should have stayed out on this, and he never would have been back there in the first place. It's like, yeah, well, next pit stop, he would have been back there immediately. So
this would have worked. This actual incident doesn't happen. He probably would have worked his way up another 4 or 5 places. A cycle would have happened in a way where some of the cars had not pitted yet, and he would have, and then they would have had to pit one more time, and he would have passed them basically because he was a better car than they were anyway. And then he would have been up in the top 5 by the end of this race. There's just no doubt in my mind that they had at least top 5 speed and had potential to win the race, depending on what would happen near the end. It's right rear damage. The steering wheel is at a 3. They do come in and we do watch in car through the front, and I can see the guys run over to the right side to change the right side tires and jack the car up. And then I see Raymond Fox jump up there, and he's got the hood up right away. And right away, the first thing I thought of is that's too many guys. And sure enough, after they make their repairs, that's what it had. They had too many guys over the wall. So they did get the damage fixed enough time to then serve the penalty. I guess the penalty doesn't count toward the clock. The penalty is a 2-lap penalty, and then the clock, they have to hurry up, get out there and get to speed so that they're off the clock. And they do that. They run laps the rest of the race that are probably 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds slower than the rest of the field due to the damage and the car shaking and doing all kind of things. But at lap 200 here, the 45 car actually leads. Ryan ends up about 34th at this point, 8 laps down. At 2:15, they have some green flag stops going on. About 10 laps later, the 22 actually takes the lead. As not everyone is pitted yet. He tries to run a real long strategy. Then lap 228, we get a caution for the 42. Ryan comes in and pits at this point too. Lap 234 is a restart, 45 leading. And the 42 had wrecked in that last caution. He went right off the track. So we gain a spot on that from that happening. And then you got the 9 taking the lead. And at lap 245, and the 9 and 11 are battling for the lead. And the 6 car is on a strategy. He put himself all the way up to 3rd here. Lap 246, the 11's leading. Lap 250, Ryan's in 33rd now, about 10 laps down. Then lap 254, we need a caution for the 47. And then we restart lap 259. We get a caution for the 5 with the 9 leading. And then we start this, we run it out. We run it out basically. So we do green, white checker. And the first green, white checker, the 11 car crashes. The second green, white checker, the 9's leading. We caution for the 21 car. The third green, white checker. Now, what's great about these 2 green, white checkers is Ryan takes the wave around. He got 2 of his laps back during this. I don't know if anybody was paying attention to that, but he did get a couple of his laps back at least. And then the third restart there, the 9 does win. The 6 was really fun to watch because he was up there on a strategy, but every restart he kind of just didn't have enough car to get to the front row. He was in 2nd row and he could never get to the front row to even push. So You had the little incident between Chastain and William on the final lap. Um, Ryan does finish 33rd, 9 laps down. The 9 car does win the race. So it would have been really fun to see what would happen if the 41 didn't decide that he wanted to be an NFL punter, but otherwise, it would have been a really fun day to watch.
Yeah, and I think the 6 maybe would have had a shot at this if it would have. I think there's the one restart where there was going to be 9 or 10 laps to go. And if that whole sequence could have played out, maybe he could have got the momentum, picked them off, but he just was not good firing off on those restarts, and it just ended up second. I think they reviewed the finish, and I think he ended up second, so I'm not too much.
Second. He had a tire strategy where he was out there with tires that were 18 laps fresher. So he had worked his way up there with that, and it just kind of ran out. It would have been interesting to see if the race would have just stayed green the rest of the way, how much more ground he might have made, because he was making ground on everybody with the fresher tires. But yeah, with
the chaos that did ensue, I don't know where the 12 would have ended up. You just never know. But it's going to be marked off as one of those races that what could have been. I feel like you said, much like those other restarts, if he doesn't get punted there was a long green flag run after that. Like, he probably would have just kept picking off positions and then got in a good spot for the end. And I think, at least a top 10, if not a top 5 or a shot at a victory with those late race restarts, but didn't get that opportunity. It's one of those ones to put back in the memory bank. I can't remember if I know Ryan and the Ryans have battled each other pretty hard in the past. I'm thinking maybe even maybe one of the Bristol dirt races or something like that. I mean, they've had, but nothing quite like this, especially for the temper to just flare that quickly and send a guy off in the turn. So that is what it is. We'll see who has a ride next year and who doesn't, I guess. So taking a look at the NASCAR Cup Series point standings, Ryan does fall 2 positions this week, but with the stage points that he made with Larson and Truex and several other guys having issues, it's not too bad. So he is in the 7th position, just 57 points out from the lead. So the top 10 right now: Kyle Larson, then Truex, Hamlin, Elliott, Byron, Gibbs, Blaney, Reddick, and Bubba Wallace in 9th, and Christopher Bell in 10th. So he still remains the only Ford in the top 10 here. 7th position, 57 points back.
When you have a bad day like we just had, sometimes you just got to get a refreshing drink out of your favorite cup to just kind of remind you, that it's not all that bad.
Yeah, it's nice to fall back on the memories of a championship and just knowing that you can do that. And like we were talking about the Martinsville race last week and the races before that, where they could face some adversity, they can come back from it. Unfortunately, this race, with the way he hit the wall, the front end and the rear end, it was kind of a miracle that they got the thing fixed in the first place and picked up a couple spots along the way through attrition. So
there's we always kind of glazed over that a little bit. There's a lot to be said for the guys coming over the wall and fixing that car and getting it back out there. It may not mean a thing right now, those 2 or 3 places that they gained by doing that, but later on in the year, that might be 2 or 3 points, that they needed. So yeah, those guys do yeoman's work, and nobody knows their names half the time, but we've interviewed some of them, and they've discovered some things that they've taught the rest of the garage how to do on how to fix these particular cars. So kudos to them for getting it back out there and getting it up to speed.
So before we move on from the race there at Texas, let's take a look at the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League results from Texas itself and go through our starting lineups for myself and Steve's teams, and then take a look at the points, wins for the week, and the overall league standing. So my starting lineup: Ty Gibbs got me 26 points. Tyler Reddick got me 40. William Byron got me 36. Kyle Larson got me 26. Bubba Wallace got me 40 points. I left Blaney in the garage. He would have only got me 17 points. So that was a good decision, I guess, to leave him back there. Featured matchups: I picked Larson over Byron. That was wrong. I picked Keselowski over Suarez. That was right, though that was pretty tight. I picked Wallace over Reddick. That was wrong. And I picked Blaney over Elliott. That was wrong. So I only got one of those matchups correct. So, but surprisingly, with that, ended up in the 13th position, 178 total points on the weekend. So not too shabby of a finish for me. How'd things go for Team Mez?
Well, if we had started off with like where we were right at the end of stage 2, I think I was near the top of the board again, because I had Larson, Truex, Reddick, Byron, Blaney, Bell. I had to mess around with the garage a little bit at one point because I had um, I had Larson in the garage, but then I realized Larson was going to get back on the lead lap, so I hurried up and changed that back right before the start of the stage. Um, it was a couple point difference by 3 point difference, but Truex really is the one who's kind of disappointing in there because he was about the 17th best on points. But Reddick and Byron got me a lot of points, and Ryan had all those stage points, so that helped him a little bit. But once again, not the day it could have been. I had Larson over Byron. That was a loss. I had Brad over Daniel, and I had Tyler over Bubba. And then I had Ryan over Chase. So, that one kind of got away from us too. But overall, it was still a decent point day, but it had potential until the wreck happened.
Now, we didn't talk about it, but just saying it, Chase Elliott wins the race, which I felt like this was just a matter of time. Like, former Cup champion, he's won so many races. Like Alex Bowman, I don't know what's going to happen with him, but Chase Elliott was somebody that I like, you're not going to keep this guy out of victory lane. And
that's the first time that sponsor's been in victory lane since 1992, they said, since Koike did it. So that was kind of cool too. I guess Chase actually brought that up or something in an interview, which was cool to see that orange car in victory lane.
So let's take a look at the top 10 in points earned. Again, I finished 13th on the weekend. You finished 40th on the weekend. 10th position, Blaney's Daisy, 180 points. 9th is Cool Guy 2K, 181. 7th is a tie, Big Burn and Go Larson, 185. 6th is Angie 12, 187. Three-way tie for third, Al 12 fan, Charlie Abu, and JD Racing, 188 points. Super tight here. Second, Glitter Bugs, 189. But pulling away from the field in the first position, the Prime Minister 3, 205 points earned on the day. So must have had a great lineup and a great set of featured matchup wins there. Overall standings, Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. I am in the 32nd position overall with 1,609 points. Steve, you're not doing too bad. You did fall a little bit, I believe. 21st position, Mez 12, 1,667. Let's take a look at the top 10. Pocono Lady in 10th, 1,720. U.S. Calvin in 9th, 1,723. 8th, Montana 12th fan, 1,752. 7th is Alyssa C, 1,758. 6th is Blaney or Bust, 1,759. 5th is Frank fan 12, 1,766. 4th is Penske fan 24, 1,769. Go Larson is in 3rd, 1,777 points. 2nd, Dr. Race Chaser, 1,778 points. And leading the way in the overall standings of the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League is Blaneyac 10, 1,789 points. And Steve, that brings us to this weekend's race in the NASCAR Cup Series, Talladega Super Speedway. And let's take a look at the NASCAR and TV report for Talladega Super Speedway. If you want to tune in this weekend, the action, at least for the Cup Series, kicks off on Saturday, April 20th, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. The NASCAR Cup Series qualifying only. Remember, there is no practice for super speedway races. Qualifying only, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time on FS1. Followed at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, the NASCAR Xfinity Series Ag Pro 300 at Talladega. That will be on Fox. In between there's an Arca Menard Series race if you want to tune into that. I think it's probably around 1 or 2 o'clock. Sunday, April 21st, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, the NASCAR Cup Series Geico 500 at Talladega Super Speedway. Again, that will also be on the Fox network. Taking a look at Ryan Blaney's career stats at Talladega, 19 starts, average start of 11.9, average finish of 14.5, 4 DNFs, all for crashes. And taking a look at his finishes there, 8 top 10s, 6 top 5s, 3 victories at Talladega, including the fall race last season. 2019-2020, he went back-to-back winning as well, so that's his 3 wins there. Since 2022, the fall race of 2022, Ryan has finished in the first or second position. Second, and first. Going back to 2021, 9th, 15th, 11th, again, second, first. So stellar finishes. Spring race last year, I know we were both there for that as well. Nearly won that race, and except for a little dust up he had with Bubba Wallace at the end. And
The triple block.
Kyle Busch ends up winning that one. So potentially could have gone back to back in victories there too. But the fall race last year, you guys went back for that one as well. Outduels Tim Fedewa and Kevin Harvick for the win, though Harvick ends up disqualified for some mechanical things on his car. So picked up the victory no matter what. But that was a thrilling finish that really kind of kicked off that championship run all the way to Phoenix. So pivotal moment last year. And the 12 car hasn't visited victory lane yet in 2024. One of his best tracks, one of his favorites, especially style of racing. Just has been dominant over the years at Talladega. Again, anything could happen, but it's always I always have a good feeling when the 12 car rolls into that track in Alabama.
Yeah, it's exciting because it's a high speed thing and they're all so close together. And this car seems to do well with pack racing like that. So Ryan's gotten really good at it with this car, obviously, and 3 wide fuel saving contest about to begin this Sunday.
Yeah, I made the joke, like 2 of the lanes aren't going to be super exciting, but the third lane will be exciting because basically, yeah, you'll see the guys in the bottom lane and the middle lane trying to log laps, trying to save fuel. Guys in that outside lane are like, you know what? I need to get to the front. And that's where things can get exciting. So from the stands, I could tell you from watching there in person, watching the similar type races at Daytona where they actually, I think this year even did get 3 wide there too, even on a much narrower track. It looks super exciting. The people around you in the stands, maybe the ones that don't necessarily have headsets on to know exactly what's happening, are pumped up. Great fan experience. But it's true. There is some fuel saving going on. But when it comes down to the end of the stages, still pretty exciting.
Yeah. So, if you get a chance and you look through our archives, look for last year's recap because we had Chris Conklin on, and he's the fuel man for the 12 car, and he is probably the most important guy this weekend coming up. Getting plugged in, getting that fuel into the car, getting the right amount in there, because you'll see a couple of these pit stops for these guys. That's all they're going to do. They come down, they're going to get their fuel, try to make sure they have the same position, if not a better position, getting off pit road. And you literally will take the lead on a green flag pit cycle if you can get the right amount of fuel in there and hang on to the end of the stage. So
now we just talked a little bit about fantasy racing. So I'm going to run through the last several winners here at Talladega. And I'm going to go back to 2019. Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, Denny Hamlin, Brad Keselowski, Bubba Wallace, Ross Chastain, Chase Elliott, Kyle Busch, Ryan Blaney. So a couple of the names you see here popping up multiple times: Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, Brad. I can't remember. I don't think that was his last win, but maybe it was. Lots of guys on that list. Great super speedway racers. Ryan shows up 3 times on that list since 2019 as a victor. But for me, and again, nobody should take fantasy advice from me. I usually am throwing in the Michael McDowells and the Gillans, and Zane Smith might be somebody to start this week. Like, I try to use people that I'm not necessarily going to use all the time on my weekly lineups, just because there is that factor of unknown or survival. And it really just depends on how this race plays out.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. As you were saying that, I kept thinking to myself, well, the main thing is are there going to be any wrecks? When they have a wreck and it takes out 5 or 6 guys, all of a sudden you start to see names up there that you don't normally see because they've worked their way to the front just through attrition more than anything else. And then they try to put themselves in position to make some moves at the end. This is the Corey LaJoie race. If Corey LaJoie is going to make the playoffs, this is one of the ones he has to win, right?
Just about to say that. Is this the week for Corey LaJoie?
Yeah, this is that week for guys like him, Mike McDowell, who are, don't get me wrong, are great super speedway racers too. That's part of the reason they'll be up there. But this is where they try to take their opportunity. What's been great about watching Ryan these last couple of years is it's not just Ryan on super speedways. It is the 22. It is the 2 car. Forget, what you think about how they race with each other sometimes. On the super speedways, they do a great job working together. If they get lined up together in a line, even if they're not first in that line, they still control the tempo of the race if they're somewhere near the front together. And that's always really cool to watch. There are guys, of those 3 guys, they do work together in those situations.
Now, weather forecast has kind of changed throughout the weekend. Right now, it is kind of calling for opportunities for rain on Saturday and Sunday. These races at Talladega are pretty infamous for going to Mondays, though Ryan Blaney has won 2 Monday races at Talladega. If you are headed to the track this weekend, keep in mind that Ryan does have an appearance on Sunday at 12:15 p.m. Central Time, I guess that would be, at the Talladega Garage Experience. He's going to have a Q&A there. So if you're at the track, you might be able to catch Ryan do that Q&A. Again, that's going to be in the infield in the Garage Experience.
Yeah. Anybody we know going to be there?
We do plan on going this weekend, and we should be able to hopefully catch that Q&A. We've made all these jokes about the rain following us around, but I have to say we've the last 2 races have been beautiful that we've been at. So
yeah,
but Daytona didn't work out so great. I don't want to have to be there and watching the race on Monday and driving home overnight, but we'll see what happens. Hopefully Mother Nature will be a little bit nicer, because again, there are no lights at Talladega Super Speedway, so they have to get this race in rain or shine by dusk. And we've seen that before. The Bubba Wallace's first career victory was a race that was shortened by rain because it was getting too dark out. So unfortunate circumstances there, but again, great track for Ryan Blaney. 3 of his career victories have happened at Talladega, including that one in the fall last year. If you want to tune in again, 10:30 a.m. Eastern time, the NASCAR Cup Series qualifying at Talladega on FS1 on Saturday, Sunday, April 21st, 3 p.m. Eastern time, the NASCAR Cup Series Geico 500 at Talladega on Fox. Well, Steve, I think that pretty much wraps up this week's episode of the Team Blaney podcast. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. You can interact with us on Facebook and X at Team Blaney, and on Instagram and TikTok at team.blaney. Some fun stuff on TikTok this week following the incident on track, so go ahead and check that out. We also like to encourage you to support the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation. Ryan's official charitable organization benefits brain health causes like UPMC Sports Medicine and the Alzheimer's Association. To learn more, visit RyanBlaneyFamilyFoundation.org or follow them on Facebook, X, and Instagram. Just a few episodes ago, we had Leah Blaney Reeves on. Steve did an interview there talking about what's coming up with their Pickle for a Purpose pickleball tournament that's coming up. There's also a really cool buffet dinner and meet and greet that they're going to hold at the Knoxville Raceway National Sprint Car Hall of Fame coming up pretty soon too. So go ahead and check them out again on their social media sites or the RyanBlaneyFamilyFoundation.org. So for my co-host Steve Mez, I'm Adam Rogers. We'll catch you next time right here on the Team Blaney podcast.
Good night, Brussels and the Netherlands. We're looking for your 41 car.
Well, thanks everybody for coming. I hope you enjoyed it.